Hey guys, Mr. McMahon, and today we start a new unit of study, and we're going to be talking about native people of Central and South America, and we're going to start with our first civilization called the Mayans. After we talk about the Mayans, we're going to go into the Aztecs and then the Incas. So we're going to learn today about the Mayans. All right, so we're going to look at the Mayans. And so here are some learning objectives for this presentation for the Maya. Identify their location on a map, identify their form of government, list their contributions in the areas of math, astronomy, and architecture, and compare the Maya to the Aztecs and the Incas. Okay, so this is a map of the origins of the Mayan, and this is a map of hunter-gatherers during early human migration. If you look at the map on the far west-hand side or the left-hand side of the map, you'll notice that humans originated in Africa about 1,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. Now, if you move to the east or to the right, you'll notice in circle number 1, hunter-gatherers crossed the Bering Strait across the land bridge we called Beringia that connected Asia to North America somewhere 12,000 to 15,000 years ago. And you'll notice by 12,000 years ago, they had migrated into what we call the Yucatan Peninsula in circle number 2. And that's where the Mayans eventually settled, and when they changed from hunter-gatherers to a civilization that we call the Mayans. So here's another picture of the Yucatan Peninsula where the Maya were located. You'll notice it's parts of Mexico and Belize and currently Guatemala. You'll also see Central America listed, which is a strip of land that connects North America to South America. Now the Yucatan rainforest, this is a picture of what it looks like. You notice it's very dense, lots of vegetation, and this is where the Mayan would have lived. So in the Yucatan rainforest, the Mayan settled in an area called the Petén, which is a flat region. You'll see a picture of it here. So inside this road, the Yucatan rainforest, you had this nice flat region that we call the Petén. So besides the Petén was flat, what are some other qualities about it? For number one, it is in a rainforest, so you have a lot of dense forest in the Petén. Number two, it is swampy. It is wet. It is dense. It is like living in a swamp. So why live there? Number three, the one thing you'll get in a swamp is you do have a lot of fresh water to drink, so you have a consistent water supply. And number four, if you do some slash and burn agriculture that we'll talk about more in a minute, you can use that Petén in the rainforest, you can use it for agriculture. So there's lots of good reasons to settle in the Petén, and that's where the Maya were settled. Okay, the style of government of the Maya is they had a monarchy. And what you had in the Mayan civilization is you had individual city-states, much like when we studied Athens in the past, for Greece, or Florence when we talked about the Italian city-states. Each city-state was its own independent state. And so each city-state had a king that led that city-state, and two of the most famous are Chichen Itza and Tikal. All right, so what about these Mayan kings? First of all, the Mayans believed that they were gods, and they were gods of the sun. So they were worshipped like gods. So number two, you were supposed to obey the king. And number three on the bubble, you're supposed to worship the king like a god. So the kings in Mayan society had lots of power over the people. What about the social structure? Well, you had the king at the top, and below the king you had the rest of the people. The religion of the Mayans, they did practice polytheism where they worship more than one god. They built temple like the one you see in the bottom right that deals with Chichen Itza. They built temples for their gods. And number three, as we've talked about before, the king was considered a living god on earth, so you worship the king like a god. The daily life and agriculture. So we're going to look at agriculture. They practice what we call slash and burn agriculture. You'll notice the picture on the left is burning the rainforest down and slashing it. And the reason you do that is you clear it so that you can do agriculture. And you'll notice the picture on the right, they're now growing crops in a part of the rainforest that has been slashed and burned. All right, so let's look at the language of the Mayans. The Mayans practice a system of hieroglyphics. recall that we talked about the Egyptians, and they also did a system of hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics is not a specific name of a language, but a description. Basically, it's where you use pictures to represent words. And why would they write hieroglyphics? First of all, to record numbers, and second, to record important dates. Okay, mathematics. If you'll notice on the left, this is the Mayan. They had a base 20 number system. So you'll notice the numbers 0 through 20 and the symbols, or 0 through 19. You'll notice that you have that little squiggly shaped thing for 0, then you have 1 dot for 1. If you look at the number 20, it's a squiggly shape like you did for 0 plus 1 dot. Number 1 or 21 has 2 dots. So that's a base 20 number system. Now look at our system is a base 10 number system. You notice it goes 1 through 10, and then 11 through 20, and so on and so forth. So this is, the Mayans had what we call a base 20 number system, which is different than ours. Okay, science and medicine. First of all, they did study astronomy. So number 1, they had a 365-day calendar, very similar to our calendar. Number 2, they used this calendar and the ideas of astronomy so they could know when to plant crops and to harvest crops. So astronomy and the calendar were very important as far as their agriculture. And number 3, they used the astronomy and the lining of the stars for their religion, their practice of polytheism. Okay, their architecture. There's some things about their architecture. First of all, they had very large cities. One of them was Chichen Itza. Another one was Tikal. On the bottom right, you'll notice their step pyramids and temples they built for their gods and their kings. And on the left, you'll notice they created ball courts for their physical activities and their different games they played. So they were very good with their architecture. Now, what about the Maya? Why did they decline? Why are they not here no more? Well, we don't know. So the reasons are really unknown. Now, there are 3 basic theories. Theory 1 is that the different city-states, Chichen Itza, Tikal, the rest of them, had lots of warfare, and over time this greatly weakened the Mayans and they eventually disappeared. Number 2, there was some type of drought or some type of climate change where they could no longer grow the crops necessary, and so they had to leave. Or number 3, they were invaded by an outside group. Maybe the Aztecs or another group invaded them and took them over. So these are 3 of the possible theories or reasons that they declined. Now, number 1, as far as the wars, is the number 1 accepted reason, the most popular. But there is no definite answer. So that was a presentation on the Mayans. I hope you learned something. Our next presentation will be on the Aztecs.